I'm John Davis. I am the tutor in contemporary film and theatre at Morley College, and I've been presenting films at Waterman's for the last 20 years. I'm here to introduce the fourth in our series of cinema clubs at Waterman's, and this time it's the film Belle that you chose. And we'll be discussing it at 8 p.m. on the evening of Monday the 29th. So let's have a look at the trailer.
Do not be afraid. I am here to take you to a good life. A life that you were born to. I beg you, Uncle, love her as I would were I here, and ensure that she is in receipt of all that is due to her as a child of mine.
Do you have in mind my position?
That is simply impossible.
What is right can never be impossible.
What has she been named?
Dido Belle Lindsay.
She takes your name.
I am not ashamed.
We will call her Dido.
Elizabeth was in much need of a companion.
And that is what we shall say when questions are asked.
We shall be receiving visitors for dinner.
Why do you not dine with your family ever?
Because that is not correct.
May I present the second of my two nieces, Miss Dido Lindsay?
I find her repulsive.
Papa, how may I be too high in rank to dine with the servants and too low to dine with my family?
Though I understand she is kept under interesting rules, she raises questions.
Would you do me the honor of taking some air with me?
Don't you care what people will say?
What should anyone say?
I had no idea she would be so black.
One does not make a wife of the rare and exotic.
Does she still have a tongue? I have a tongue.
Though yours explains well enough why I may not marry your son. My greatest misfortune would be to marry into a family who would carry me as their shame.
I've enabled every rule of convention so that you would know exactly where you belong.
I don't know that I find myself anywhere. Do you love her?
As though she were created of you and me.
What of your mother?
I know very little of her other than the colour she has given me.
Then at least you know she was beautiful.
You would risk your position for a man without name.
Laws that allow us to diminish the humanity of anybody are not laws.
He speaks a voice for people who do not have one.
If I had your choice, I would choose the man I loved.
There are rules in place which dictate how we live.
You break every rule when it matters enough, Papa. I am the evidence.
The director's Amma Asante, who was born in Lambeth of Ghanaian heritage and started her career in show business through Grange Hill. And as a treat, she was sent to America to meet Nancy Reagan to talk about Just Say No to Drugs. I hope that went well. She went on to become a writer and producer, and in 1998 created the BBC Two series Brothers and Sisters. Her first feature was very much kitchen sink drama called A Way of Life, a story of a single mum, a suicide, and the fostering system. And then came Belle, which we'll talk about in a little while. Her third film was United Kingdom, something I loved. It was a romance and a historical story, so we're in the same territory, based on the real-life romance of a young black man and a white woman in Britain who fall in love and marry despite the express disconsent of both families and the British and South African government, because the young man was the heir apparent to the throne of Bechuanaland, which is now known as Botswana. The South Africans hated it because this was against their apartheid feelings. The British thought it was really bad because they wanted to be friends with South Africa. And they persevered, and she became his consort. They eventually were able to move back to Botswana, as it became, and he became leader, and their son became the first elected president. Since then, she's directed in things like The Handmaid's Tale, where she did episode 3 in season 3. The cast has had a newcomer, really, in the main lead, Gugu Sophia Mabwatha-Raw, whose acting career started in Doctor Who, but it was Belle that gave her the breakthrough. She is accomplished on stage and screen. In 2015, her role in Nell Gwyn on the West End stage earned her a nomination for Best Actress in the Evening Standard Awards. And she's worked in Hollywood too, and in 2015 appeared in the biopic Concussion with Will Smith. In 2016 she was in an episode of Black Mirror. The two character leads are played by Tom Wilkinson, who plays William Murray, the first Earl of Mansfield, Dido's great uncle. Wilkinson made his acting debut in 1976 and has worked on several British television series, First Amongst Equals, Martin Chuzzlewit. But I think he's probably best known for his role in The Full Monty in 1997 as the slightly repressed accountancy type, and that won him a BAFTA. Since then, he's been in films like Wild, Shakespeare in Love, and he's a solid British character actor. He even has had an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for In the Bedroom. Alongside him, Emily Watson plays Elizabeth Murray, Countess of Mansfield, his wife. She's classically trained, was in the Royal Shakespeare Company, nominated for an Olivier for her role in Uncle Vanya in 2003 at the Donmar, and has had a couple of Academy Award nominations for her work in Lars von Trier's Breaking the Waves, and that was 1996, and in 1998 for Harry and Jackie, when she played Jacqueline Dupré. And most recently, those of you who saw the excellent television series Chernobyl, she played a nuclear scientist with a conscience willing to speak truth to power in communist Russia. Famously, my fun fact is that she turned down the role of Amélie, which had been named for her in the Genet film, which led to stardom for Audrey Tautou instead. But we all make mistakes. The film itself is based on the true story of Dido Elizabeth Bell and depicts this illegitimate mixed-race daughter of an enslaved African woman and a Royal Navy captain. And the film starts in 1769 with her arrival as a mixed-race child in a Britain which is class-ridden, and she is immediately dropped into the aristocracy. The film has plucked various characters and episodes from history, but it's based on one painting. It's a 1779 painting, originally attributed to Johann Zoffany, but it's now attributed to David Martin. And it hung in Kenwood House, one of the featured places in the film, until 1922, but it now hangs at Scone Palace in Perthshire. And it was one of the first European portraits to portray a black subject next to a white subject in an equal way, particularly interesting as they were aristocrats. And you'll see within the film, portraits showing black people in submission to white are featured more heavily. From there, the script takes us through some events that actually did happen, although it interprets them in its own particular way. The Zong Massacre of 1781, set against the growing events of the fight against slavery, which took another 30, 40 years. So what sort of film is this? We're on the sort of tension of entertainment versus education spectrum here. Whether that matters or not, I don't know, but is this film a thriller, a romance, a costume drama, a detective story, or all of the above? We'll be discussing it. The authorship itself is interesting. It was written by Mizan Segui, who saw the original painting and wrote the story based on what she could find out about the real-life characters. She wasn't able to work on the film itself, and Asante came in to direct and claimed authorship of the script. The lawyers got involved, and also the American Guild of Screenwriters. And rather interestingly, the different versions of the script were put side by side without a name on them, and somebody adjudicated which of the scripts was closest to the film in the end, and they decided that Mizan Segui had the authorship of it. So, on the 29th, we'll be asking, how does this film work? Does it work for you? Did you enjoy it as entertainment or education? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? And what you do now is pop off to Amazon Prime, pay for the film, watch it through. And one little tip, have a look at the end of the film and you'll see that in the top left-hand corner, there's a thing saying trivia, and you click on that, it'll give you some interesting or not so interesting background to the film itself. So until 8 PM on the 29th of June, and I look forward to discussing with you what you made of the film, I'll leave you to go off and enjoy Belle.